It seems like every time I join you, we have no news. Nothing's going on. We're in a dead period because there's not a lot going on. The Bears have been very methodical in their approach to free agency, and every day it's like talking to my children. I have to come out and be like, listen, everybody, there is a lot of ways to fill out a roster, and it's not all going to be flash, and it's not all going to be $100 million signings. Listen, you want Christian Kirk for $100 million? Are you that desperate? Are you that bad? It's like the people who are like, hey, like there's a restaurant opening. Be like, hey, we could wait for a half hour and have this. Oh, you want to just run a Taco Bell? Go do that. And by the way, I guess we can kiss Taco Bell as a potential sponsor. But listen, but like that, sometimes you got to wait for the quantity. But what I will not make you wait for is the opening of the show. So, Sammy, play the animation, please.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
Trying to cut it back. Justin Fields making magic happen. There goes Fields. Touchdown.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
Hey, welcome to the Sick Podcast. It's me, Adam Rank, and we've got a great show for you today. Before we bring out our first guest, who you're going to love, you know him, Nick Moreno of CHGO Sports. We'll get to him in a moment, but first, we are recording this on Thursday morning. Tiger Woods is still out on the course in Augusta. The Chicago Cubs are playing the season opener right now. There are so many great things going on in sports right now. The Masters, opening day of baseball, and the fact that everybody is here still wanting to talk about the Chicago Bears is a testament to the great fans that we have and how amazing the NFL season is. But at the same time, people, like I was saying in the cold open, we don't have to rush through this. There's plenty of things to keep us distracted. You know, we don't have to sit here. Listen, you don't have to hit the refresh page waiting for the Bears to throw out a $100 million to some third string wide receiver. Like, we don't need that. It's fine. Everything's going to be okay. So go back. It's national. First of all, it's also National Beer Day. It's National Burrito Day. Although if you're in Chicago, dial back. Maybe go to Big Al's. Maybe go to Portillo's or do something else. I'm in Southern California. I can go get a burrito. But for the rest of you, chill out. All right? Okay. Our first guest is going to be joining us here from CHGO Sports. They just launched a whole new podcast that not only covers the Chicago Bears, although our guest is involved with the Chicago Bears, but everything that you need with Chicago sports, including the White Sox, the Cubs, the Blackhawks, the Bulls, all that stuff. It's a great organization. Hope you're probably already checking them out, but if you're not, I implore you. But let's waste no more time in bringing our guest, Nick Moreno. And Nick, listen, first of all, how are you?
I'm doing well, Adam. How about yourself?
I'm doing terrible, because I'll tell you why. Because listen, this is what happens before the show. We meet in the green room. This is what I like to do. I come in, meet in the green room. Nick and I have not met before. And so, we'll get to know each other a little bit. Just say hello, make sure everything's fine. First thing, Sammy, actually it's Anello, but Sammy's the figurehead. Because I know Sammy put him up to it. Immediately, hey, Nick, great studio. Love your guys' studio, which is an obvious shot at me and what I've got working here, which I think it's a humble little abode, I will say. And then sitting there, and I was talking about like I have reading glasses, and I'm like sitting here trying to read my notes. And Nick's like, "Yeah, my parents like reading glasses." And look at the hair. You're showing up with it. At least you could have done it thrown on a beanie, so I don't feel as bad. But other than that, I think I'm great, Nick.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know my dad, he's the same way though. He's like, hey, I need the reader glasses. So once you brought him out, and I could have used some, a hat today. It's raining here in Chicago, but I decided to do the hair.
All right, well, fair enough. It's 32 degrees here in Southern California. 32 to our international audience. It would be like 90 to the Americans. But here's my thing. I love what you guys have been doing with CHGO Sports. I always appreciate as many different perspectives. And of course, you've got Adam on there. You've got Olin Kreutz. You guys do a great job. How has that been? You guys just launched it recently. How has that experience been for you?
Man, it's been great. I mean, to have professionals like that alongside you to cover the Chicago Bears, like you learn so much on a daily basis. Just having Olin Kreutz in the room every single day, it's like hey, am I going to learn about offensive line play? All the stories you hear that, he's experienced throughout his tenured career with the Bears. And then for a guy like Adam Hogue is like, that's someone I looked up to when I was in journalism school and seeing what
Mhm.
he's able to do. Now they're my coworkers. So it's been fantastic. Just over a month ago, we actually launched CHGO and, from Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, White Sox, Cubs, Chicago Sky as well. Like it's been great. Everyone's kind of getting along together and, just establishing this content, and people are finding like, hey, at 11 a.m. Central Time, I'm going to go watch CHGO Bears, go see what Nick, Olin, Adam, Will DeWitt have to say. And like you mentioned earlier, like the Bears haven't been doing much. So you have to be
Yeah.
creative in trying to find things to talk about at times. But it's been awesome, really a true blessing, because this is what I've always wanted to do. When I went to school at the University of Iowa, I always said I wanted to cover the Bears. However that can happen, I want to get to this point, and now it's kind of here. So I'm really just embracing it, and I'm blessed to be doing it.
Yeah, you're absolutely crushing it. And it's cool because Iowa guy grew up still, a lot of us move away. And so for you to still be in the middle of it and of course experiencing everything that Chicago has to offer, I think there's nothing like being in Chicago for opening day. And you mentioned everybody's getting along. How soon until the South Siders and the North Siders start to clash over the baseball season?
Maybe really, really quickly with that. And it's funny because we have our shirts, right, that you can buy, and the White Sox logo and the Cubs logo, they're facing each other. So
Yeah.
we already had like envisioned this kind of happening, but I'm sure once that gets going, it'll be fun to watch. I'm a White Sox fan, but I'm looking forward to those days when they finally get here.
I'm aware. I know all too well that you're a White Sox fan. There's actually not a team that I hate more than the White Sox, as I lose half of my audience. I will tell you, yeah, the funny thing is, well, listen, growing up, my parents are Cubs people. And so when we moved to Southern California, I was in first grade. My parents would not let me root. We lived close to Anaheim anyways. So I was going to be an Angels fan, but my parents were like, you're not rooting for the Dodgers. Like whatever it is. I was a little kid. The Dodgers had just won their only World Series, 88. So like there was like a thing, like you're not rooting for them. So I grew up as an Angels fan. And then so of course, AJ Pierzynski will still hurt my soul to this day, which I don't know why more people don't do it. Like I wish more people did. Anytime I struck out swinging, I would just start running to first base.
Hey, there you go, AJ. I mean, obviously doing that and it worked out. But Adam, I have a question for you. Like, obviously, you moved so early on to LA, and you just stuck with Chicago sports, though, right?
Well, Chicago sport. This is where you're going to get me in trouble.
True.
I'm to pull back the curtain. I know you're a young fellow. LA didn't have a football team for a long time. I don't know if you knew this. Yeah, it's weird now because LA being the top of the football world, hard to imagine. There was a huge gap for a lot of adolescents who did not have a football team. And what you find with Southern California people now, when we do the drop off with the kids, you see the parents out there, and it's a lot of, growing up out here, you're like, everybody's a Lakers fan. Everybody's pretty much a Kings fan. Like there's some Ducks fans, but primarily the Kings. Then it's Angels Dodgers is where the huge split is. And, but it's whatever random football team. And for a lot of people, me being born in Chicago, my parents being Chicago fans, it's very easy for me to make that transition. A lot of people, there's a lot of Vikings fans. One of my friends grew up a Vikings fans because of Randy Moss. There's a lot of 49er fans. So it's really like, I don't know. It feels like we get robbed of an experience, but at the same time, one of the cool things is like my children now root for the football team that my parents rooted for. Like if I was a Rams fan, it would be weird. And it was when I was a real little kid, but now the kids, there's a lineage, so they all, so that's how it happens. Although I will tell you the Kings Blackhawks rivalry back in the day, not fun for me with the family. I was not a very popular fellow.
Oh, I can imagine, but hey, it all worked out in the end.
Now you were talking about how it's somewhat difficult to go out there and find content and try to figure out what to talk about. I know the other day, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys were talking about who were taking in a 2-on-2.
Yes. Yeah. So one of our,
who was your 2-on-2 guy? What was the gist of that?
Yeah, so we got a super chat and just on YouTube saying, hey, if you guys are going to do a basketball tournament, 2v2, and the podcast before we got to the CHGO was called the Chicago Audible, and the founder of that, Will DeWitt, was my counterpart in the 2v2. So it would be Adam Johns, Adam Hogue, and then you had Olin Kreutz, Jason McKee, and then Waddle and Sylvie. So like, okay, who's going to win these 2v2s? And I mean, I didn't play in high school, but every time after football practice or the football seasons, like I was at the basketball courts for hours
Yeah.
on end, so I can hoop. And I was asked on the show yesterday, hey, can Will hoop? And I don't know, I just never seen him, and it just was a long pause, and it was basically a no. So yeah, that's where it kind of came from. But apparently, Adam Johns and Adam Hogue are hoopers; they can play. But hey, Olin
Yeah.
Kreutz and Jason McKee are professional football players. They can move.
That's
So
the thing.
and low post, like it's not happening. Like Olin Kreutz just showed me how to block maybe like a week or two ago, and I, put my hands on his chest to show him how to form and stuff. It's like hitting a brick wall, like the one
It's
behind me
crazy.
right here. It's like that's not happening. Get him in the low post. It's like I'm gonna have to pull the chair or something because there's not gonna be much resistance.
I like how you threw in making sure everybody knows that brick wall is real. Unlike the drywall that my producer Sammy's gonna harangue me for when the show's over. It is interesting though that anytime you're in the midst of a professional athlete, you forget sometimes. But I will tell this story. So Maurice Jones-Drew, we were doing Fantasy and Friends back in the day, and there was a pull-up bar outside of the stage. And on a Monday, one of the PAs was like, "Hey, let's have a pull-up contest." I'm like, "Okay." So I went out, did 13 pull-ups. MJD did one. And MJD not happy, like he starts, doing the whole thing, like I'm whatever, like I'm injured. Fast forward to Friday, MJD does 23 pull-ups after working out for a week because he was so chagrined for not even a week, 5 days. He's like, I've been doing pull-ups all week now. I'm like, of course, like you couldn't let me have one thing. Like I had one thing to hold over you. These guys are they're certainly special.
See, that's what makes them, like these athletes, these professional athletes, you give them something to work towards, like that, like a little pull-up contest. And now MJD is like doing, like you said, over 20 of them. Like that's what makes these guys special. And so, like I said earlier, having a guy like Olin Kreutz, like it doesn't take much to, take them off, and like it used to be, right? So it's like just that little edge that they have, regardless of what they're doing. It could be like we have a ping pong table over here. I haven't played Olin yet, but he says he doesn't play. But I bet you if we get going, I don't want to see how that ends for me.
Nope, because he's going to want you to put money on it, and then he's going to smoke you, and it's going to be one of those things. It's disgusting. That's why you're a little in awe of these guys sometimes. You're like, gosh, and you forget what it takes to get to that NFL level and how truly gifted they are athletically. Let's turn our attention now to the Chicago Bears. This is obviously, speaking of 2-on-2s, the Bears have two second-round picks. Excuse me. If you're running the team, where do you want to go with those 2 picks?
And see, this is an interesting question here, Adam, because if I'm doing it through the perspective of Ryan Poles, his lens, right, how he's kind of approaching free agency, he's balancing the now and the future, right? Mm-hmm. Because we haven't seen any of those splash signings. They tried to go get Ryan Bates out of Buffalo. He ends up signing, right, the offer sheet. And then according, like with Olin Kreutz being here, he knows a few things, but they were in on Brian Allen. They wanted Brian Allen. They just the money didn't come out to it. So they want to address this offensive line. But I think for me, if I'm like Ryan Poles, what's going to be my first pick? What are people going to remember me for? It's a former offensive lineman. You also have Ian Cunningham in the building, right? So 2 former offensive linemen here. And we're thinking the longevity of the Chicago Bears and Justin Fields being a huge part of that. I think if it falls, you look at your board and you have, maybe it's a tackle, and you're not set on Tevin Jenkins, Larry Borom right now. Do you go address that? I would think that's maybe the direction a Ryan Poles would take at this point. And obviously the big thing, who's Justin Fields throwing to at this right now? Yeah. Is it going to be Byron Pringle, Equanimeous St. Brown? And obviously Darnell Mooney had a great year too, having over 1,000 yards, and you need to address that. But if you're looking at the longevity, do the Bears absolutely need to take someone in round 2, a wide receiver? Like we see some of these bigger receivers that are on the Stephon Diggs just signed an extension, right? 5th round draft pick. You look
Yeah.
at Tyreek Hill, he was a 5th round draft pick. Darnell Mooney, a 5th round draft pick. You can find people later, and the Bears have tried to draft wide receivers high. You look at Kevin White, you look at Anthony Miller. It hasn't panned out. So I'm thinking, even though I just said that, I'm like, I would try to see if my board lines up with addressing the offensive line and wide receiver, going heavy on the offense. That's okay.
Yeah.
That is okay in this draft, because the most important part of 2022, it might not be the Bears being competitive in the division or, maybe looking for playoffs. It's Justin Fields. You need to do what's right to give him the situation to get the best evaluation for him. So when 2023 rolls around, when you have more cap space, you have that draft capital, you can almost maybe go a little bit more in on some of these bigger free agent names, or even in the draft, or whatever it may be. But I think whatever gives you the proper evaluation of Justin Fields, that's how Ryan Poles should be addressing it. But it wouldn't be too surprising. Let's say they draft a corner and then the offensive line. It's like,
Right.
well, they do have the long run in mind too. So let's build up this entire team, and then we can kind of assess it from there.
Yeah, we were talking about this on Tuesday night. We had Caitlin Sharkey on with Take It to the Rank, and I was of the mind, and this is the way that I'm trying to embrace this new philosophy, that we get too tied up into 1985. Not you. You're a young man. You don't even know what 1985. Go Google. No, I'm just kidding. But we get so tied up to the defense when people are like, we need a corner. I'm like, well, we have Jalen Johnson. We've got Thomas Graham. Like, do we? Like, okay. We need a defensive tackle. I'm like, no, we've done okay. And I think that Obi-Wan Genobi could eventually end up joining the team. And Nakeem Hicks is still not signed with anybody else as well. I would not be upset that if every single one of these picks went towards I know that it won't, but I'm like, listen, let's go. Like the Angels did. And I mentioned this on Tuesday night as well. When the Angels last year were in the amateur draft, they drafted 20 pitchers, not a single hitter. And if the Bears took a similar type approach, and we're like, we're just drafting linemen and receivers, tight end, because we got to. Well, I guess Ryan Pace isn't here, but I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah, and it just gives you the most opportunities, right, to finally hit on somebody that's going to stay and actually be a part of what the Bears are trying to build here. So I'm perfectly fine with that approach. I'm just seeing it like, man, is Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Matt Eberflus, are they going to actually do that? And just seeing how they've approached free agency, they wanted to address the offensive line. Like the biggest contracts that they've given out so far have gone to the defense. And Justin Jones, it would have been Ogunjobi. And then you have Quan Muhammad, who came from the Colts. So you look at who they're kind of, I guess, prioritizing at this point, and it's that defense. And this is Matt Eberflus's team. Like, would it be crazy to see a defensive player drafted with a very first pick? Maybe not. So, but I think the Bears just need to get that offense right, Adam. Like, from even as young, I guess, as I am, it's like we've seen defense. It can only take you so far. We've seen so many Bears teams, because of the inaptitude of the offense, just end games. Like you need to address that side of the ball to be competitive. When you have the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North, and obviously with Aaron Rodgers still there, you need to be able to put up points. And the NFC as a whole it's doable, right? I think all the powerhouse teams are in the AFC. So can you get competitive? And if Justin Fields is that guy, man, Adam, I can't imagine what this city would be like if Justin Fields is that guy, can just have this explosive offense with that arm talent. It would be exciting to watch.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about the Bears, and I guess the Bulls to some extent too, is that everybody's funneled into rooting for the Bears. You have the Southsiders and the Northsiders. Their baseball teams are divided. Out here in Southern California, it's very similar. Dodgers, Angels. By the way, don't let any Dodger fans fool you. There was nobody going to Dodger fans in the 2000s when the Angels were dominating. There was nobody. They love to tell a yarn. I will tell you this. I was at drop-off this week, Angels-Dodgers Freeway Series. The first two games, the Angels won. Nary a person wearing a Dodger hat anywhere. And then all of a sudden, the Dodgers win a throwaway third game. And then, here are all the Dodger fans. I'm like, you guys could not be bigger front runners. But the point is that the one thing that rallies Southern California is the Lakers, and they're terrible. Chicago, very similar. Like when the Bears win the Super Bowl again, the celebration that they had for the Cubs is going to seem like the opening for a Food for Less. And this is going to be like Pearl Jam playing. Pearl Jam was a very famous band. Your parents and I liked Pearl Jam. Okay. I know we were readers. We saw Pearl Jam when they were opening for the Chili Peppers, but it would be like that.
It definitely would. And like you just, even like with the 2018 team, Adam, like the city just rallied around that team, seeing that the defense and just, the creative plays, the Bears are back. And then you have that 2019 season, the convention that was happening at Rosemont. They were it almost felt like they were like claiming to be like that Super Bowl contender before obviously anything had happened. Like obviously the 85 Bears made the Super Bowl shuffle, and deservedly so, because that team could back it up. It almost gave you that kind of vibes. And then the home opener happens against the Green Bay Packers and they score 3 points. And then we see that season just derail, and Ryan Pace, the Bears trying to hold on for dear life to kind of do whatever you need to do, make trades, move up, whatever it needs to be to try to stay competitive with that team that, just didn't quite have it. And it all goes to that offense, quarterback, the whole entire scheme just didn't work. But I remember how exciting it was for the 2018 team. And I can't imagine for sustained success, because that's what Ryan Poles has talked about.
Yeah.
He wants to have that sustained success because the Bears have gone in like a few bursts, right? Where they'll go up and win, double-digit victories. And then what happens next season? No longer, that's not that success is kind of gone, and the Bears go back to being the Bears. So that's, the day that I'm waiting for, the day that you're waiting for, all Bears fans are all waiting for, because honestly, covering the team becomes a lot. It's just more enjoyable too when the Bears are actually winning. So I'm really looking forward to those days, and hopefully Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Justin Fields, Eberflus are the guys to bring in that new era of winning Bears football.
That is one of the things, because going back to the 2019 home opener, the utter disappointment of how awful that team looked offensively. I think that's one of the things that I would love to see is offensively just going out there and scoring a ton of points. Like, I just want to be pleasantly surprised, and perhaps with everybody being so disappointed right now, where over the last couple of off seasons, we've talked about like, well, this is the year that they put it all together. Now it's like, it's never going to happen. We don't have any players. We have 53 guys signed, blah, 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 whatever it is. I think we're probably in a better spot because of it. And I'm out here, and I remember Justin Herbert's first game, emergency start against his Kansas City Chiefs. And he went out there and lit it up. And that Chargers team lost that game. Like, a lot of people don't remember. It was a Tyreek Hill fluke touchdown that he was actually down. I don't know why they didn't overturn that. But I was going against them in fantasy, so I remember that specifically. But I remember, the feeling that you had in that game of like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, win or lose, who cares? Justin Herbert's a real quarterback. And I think last year, after Justin Fields was drafted, I went on the Tape Never Lies network and I said, I don't care if we win or lose this season. And I think the Bears should approach it that way. I just want to know that our quarterback is the guy. And the Bears are like, well, we're going to start Andy Dalton. And you're like, oh, God, here we go. So at least there we have something to feel different about this season.
Yeah, and Adam, I wonder if that moment could have happened. It was the Monday night game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Justin Fields takes them down, scores, they take the lead. And obviously they lose that game, but they had the bye week the following week. So that momentum kind of stops. And then it's Baltimore. And I think Justin Fields plays maybe like 30 snaps in that game before leaving. So we never saw him got to just build off that momentum. And even though they lost, it's okay. You saw what Justin Fields could do in prime time on the road against the Steelers, right? So I felt like we were almost robbed of what maybe could have been. It's not to say that Justin Fields, can't get to that moment again, but maybe we could have seen it a little earlier, but just how the schedule played out, him getting injured, we didn't get to really see that. But again, those are all the questions. After the season, you think about, man, that could have been huge. It could have been, maybe the Bears obviously are not still competitive or do anything in terms of win-loss record, but we saw more out of Justin Fields because you saw flashes for sure. And I think of the like being at Soldier Field in the press box, seeing the 49ers run. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like I was just watching like Soldier Field, all the fans, like you saw people standing up, you saw people sitting down, you're like, what's gonna happen? And then Justin Fields ends up scoring a touchdown in the play. And I remember just going, I think it was to Will. I was like, man, he's got it. That's a play that how many other quarterbacks can make that? You can count on one hand probably. But yeah, I think I think back to that Pittsburgh Steelers game, the schedule, him getting injured, and I'm like, maybe we missed out on something right there.
Yes and no, because I do know, because I was doing NFL Total Access, the post-game show Monday nights this season. So that Bears game, and everybody was very concerned with me. Our sound guy, Joe, is a Packers fan, and everybody was very concerned because obviously there was the stupid taunting call and all this stuff. And I can't even, it's funny because I can't even remember quite how the game ended. I know obviously losing, but everybody was like, are you going to be okay? I'm like, I don't care one way or the other. Justin Fields can play. Like, I think that he just illustrated our coach sucks and nothing's going to change this season. So there you go. And I think that coming into this coming year, that first game, don't give us Green Bay. Don't be jerks. Schedule makers. Give us somebody easy. Give us the Jet. I don't think the Jets are on their schedule, but whoever it is.
They are. They play the Jets, Giants.
Right.
Like,
that's right. Give us the Jets. Like, let us have the Jets. I don't think you should play your division rivals until week 5. I think that it should be a mandate that you don't play, or at least week 4. And that week 4 is like rivalry week. And it's like, oh yeah, Packers, Bears, week 4. Boom, you go after it. Things like that. That's a story. That's a pod for another day. But I do want to ask you too. And I do know Mayor Lori Lightfoot came out, I think it was today, talking about like Chicago's going to make a great offer to keep the Bears in Chicago. I want to ask you, and I'm not asking you a prediction or anything, but I want to know how you feel personally. Would you rather have the Bears play downtown in Chicago, or would you be agreeable to them moving to Arlington Heights? Your personal feeling, not a prediction.
Yeah, so we actually talked about that on today's podcast, and we asked Olin Kreutz, just like, how would you feel about this? Obviously, having played at Soldier Field, knowing exactly what that's like, and he said it would suck. And just because of, again, you see the skyline, you see Go Bears, and the building, just the atmosphere, right? For me, like having the opportunity to cover the Bears for entirely my first season doing it, I got a chance to go to the Raiders' new stadium. Got a chance to go to even Green Bay, and even like the Minnesota Vikings. Like, those are up to date, modern, and just, again, the press box at Green Bay. Obviously, it's very historic, but I'm all for Arlington Heights for the Bears to get up to date, but still you could still have that history, I think, and still move and just get into the modern times. Because honestly, Adam, like, I don't know, are you gonna go party at the Field Museum after you see a Bears game and they win? Like,
right.
I mean, and you can go elsewhere, but I think what they're trying to do is just build it up over there, make it an experience. And if you have a team that's winning, like, you want to be around things that you can go to. But for me personally, I'm definitely okay with the Bears moving to Arlington Heights. And I know you do lose that history. You do also lose, just being in the city of Chicago, right? But I wonder if like these newer players, they don't really have that attachment to it, right? So if you modernize everything, and I don't know, I think it would be a really cool, fun experience for not only the players, but all Bears fans in general.
Yeah, like if they drafted Sky Moore, like he has no attachment to Soldier Field. I appreciate where Olin Kreutz is coming from, because I understand there's something about walking around Soldier Field, even walking around the outside of it. And this is like, hey, like, this is where my dad used to come to games and things like that. But I also feel too, I think that stadiums mean more for baseball. Like, if you like, I still can't believe they tore down the old Comiskey, who, by the way, even my North Side family will always contend like Comiskey was way better than Wrigley Field. And like if they had modernized that field, because they had like the dugouts, or not the dugout, for lack of a better, the barbecue, the Kingsford barbecue area in left field. Like it was really well built. Like it took them extra time to tear it down because it was so well built, like crazy stuff. So I think for NFL stadiums, it doesn't matter as much because with baseball, you're in the city, you want public transportation. Those games are at night during the week most of the time, except for the Chicago, they have the Friday afternoon games for the Cubs. That makes more sense. Like if you ever went down to Petco in San Diego, you're like, this has to be downtown. Football is a different vibe. My office is right next to SoFi Stadium. SoFi Stadium is not in Los Angeles. It's in Inglewood. It's about an hour, like with traffic, it's an hour away from downtown LA. It can be. And you know what? It doesn't matter. Like it's fine. Like the stadium's amazing. Like you go into the stadium. I think that football is a lot of I don't think that football is as much bars as it is parking lot tailgates. And if Arlington Heights gave you the opportunity to tailgate and it gave you the opportunity, like you're going to hang out in your car anyways. Like as long as it's nice, as long as it's built like SoFi, if you build a stadium that's like the Meadowlands, that's like wherever the 49ers play in Santa Clara, that's a terrible situation. You don't want any of those. But if it's a mini SoFi, I'm gonna tell all Chicago fans, you're gonna want that experience. Because like Minnesota was like that too. You mentioned you had been there.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, Adam. It's like when people are going to these games, and obviously the recent history of the Bears, it's like you haven't seen enough wins, right? So you're kind of almost not fed up with the team, but that's ultimately what matters in the end. It's like seeing your team succeed. So regardless if they're at Soldier Field in the city or in Arlington Heights, like that's what's always going to be the thing that counts the most. If the Bears become successful, with this new era, Bears football, then yeah, if they're in Arlington Heights, people are going to back them up regardless. So yeah, but to go back to your point, like I'm all for it. It makes my drive from an hour to about 30 minutes, and I'll take that. Yeah, as you know, yeah, it can get busy.
Yeah, where do the people live? That's another thing too. It's like that's why baseball stadiums work well in downtown situations because people are downtown during the week. On Sundays, nobody's downtown. Like that's I don't know if you've ever been downtown on a Sunday in April. There's nobody around. Maybe people are walking to the Bean or whatever, but like nobody's there. Like, I don't know. I think that you got to get over the attachment and just understand that it's going to be a competitive advantage. They'll probably build hotels. This is one of the things like we do this where we make a baseball trip with my buddies. We go down to Petco Park and we're not even Padre fans, but like, it's just fun. Like rent a hotel. You go there on the Friday night game, have the hotel, whatever. This, you could go stay over Sunday night or whatever. People coming from out of town, you fly into O'Hare to Arlington Heights. What is that? 20 minutes, get a hotel right there. Boom. You go to the game, get out of there. There's going to be WrestleManias there. There'll be AEW will probably start selling out that stadium. I think it's something that's time has finally come. And I hope that we can modernize it and start enjoying all the good things that could come with something like that.
Yeah, too. That and like Final Fours, like could you get some basketball? Like there's so much you can do with a modern. Actually, Adam, I want to get your take. Like, are you all for bear weather, or if it was in a dome? Like how would you feel about that?
Here's what my dad says. It's he's my dad. This is his whole thing. He goes 1988. Bears were 12-4, number 1 seed, and he's like the soft ass San Francisco 49ers came into our stadium and whooped us. Like the 49ers, like he would like that. That's the day that Bear weather died. He's like 85, like 85. And he pointed out, he's like, listen, 85, obviously that was an effect on the Rams. The Rams, actually had a pretty decent team, but the weather kind of played into it. He's like, but they went to New Orleans in a dome and smoked the Patriots. So like, what did it matter? Like that defense traveled. The defense still plays tough indoors, just as tough as they play in outdoors. So I think it's time, like we can put the notion away of bear weather. By the way, the Vikings also, like, the Vikings have always sucked, so I guess it didn't really matter. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I think those days are over.
I completely agree. I mean, what would a Khalil Mack have done, in turf, like on there? Maybe, who knows? But yeah, I'm all with you with the bear weather and the argument there. I get it. People who, have attachment to the stadium and wanting to be there, I get it. But we can modernize things.
My uncle operated a grain elevator in Yorktown, Sandwich, anyway, somewhere out there, out in the boonies. And for the longest time, they didn't have a bathroom indoors. And then eventually they did. They got some indoor plumbing. And it's like, yeah, that's why we put roofs on stadiums now. Like, the technology is advanced. We don't have to go back and live like our forefathers. Like, believe me, if Red Grange could have put a dome over a field, he would have. They did it. Chicago Stadium in 1932. George Halas did it, I should say. It's fine. You'll be okay.
You'll be just fine.
You'll be just fine. Well, listen, Nick, I want to thank you. I know we got a lot of time to go before the NFL draft, but really wanted to get you in, wanted to talk to you about the CHGO podcast and everything, all the great things that you guys are doing. Implore everybody who has not yet checked it out to go do that, subscribe, like all their channels and everything like that. I hope we can do this again in the near future, hopefully after the draft, and we can kind of get into what this roster is going to start to look like.
That sounds like great. It sounds great to me, Adam, but I would like to get you here at some point.
Let's do it.
Ever in the Chicagoland area.
I didn't want to invite myself in, but I would be happy to at any time.
We would love to have you, Adam. So we'll have to definitely set that up, get you in studio, and talk some Bears football.
All right. Well, then we'll do this. I will arrange it. Here's what I need. If we can get this, I will fly in. I should fly in on a Thursday. I want to go to a Cubs Friday afternoon game. So we can do the Friday morning show, then go to the game, right? That should work out time-wise.
Yeah, you know what? I think you should come on when Olin Kreutz is here. He's here on Mondays and Thursdays, and maybe they'll change
Fridays. I'll do it. I'll do a Thursday. I'll fly in on Wednesday night. We'll do it. I'll do an overnight.
Okay.
I'll fly right in. Come right in.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Maybe again, we'll keep you updated with the schedule change or anything like that. But that sounds like a great plan to me.
Well, I'm glad we're hammering it that out. Plus, it's also, I can tell the family, like, hey, I got to go to Chicago. They need me in studio. Like, I could Zoom this or do whatever. We use StreamYard, by the way, but I got to be in studio for this to really have the full experience. Go to the day game, fly out Friday night. I love this idea. All right, happy to do it.
Sounds good. We'll definitely set it up.
All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you stopping by. Enjoyed this conversation. Hope to, again, do it real soon. I'll see you in Chicago at some point. But thanks again, and good luck to you the rest of the way.
Appreciate it, Adam. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much. There he goes. The great Nick Moreno of CHGO Sports. Again, make sure you're checking it out. Listen, we're one big family. We love everybody. We love the Tate Never Lies Network. We love Bear Down Cuz. We love CHGO, the Barroom Network. Like, it's all good. We're all Bear fans. We all want the same thing. And so I want to thank Nick for stopping by. By the way, I do notice too, like, think about this. The Masters is happening right now. I don't know where Tiger Woods is at the moment. I want you right now in the comments to number one, write the word sick. Number two, thinking of Tiger Woods and his comeback from injury. 5 players. There are 5 notable players who will be making a comeback this season from an injury. Which one of these 5 players do you think could have the biggest impact this season? We're talking about Christian McCaffrey. We're talking about Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston, our own Khalil Mack, who's now with the LA Chargers, and of course, DeAndre Hopkins. Of those 5 guys, which one of them is going to have the best season? Make sure you put that in the comments, and then we will revisit this. And at the end of the year, when it's your player, you can go, look, I called this on the Sick podcast in early April, and you can go crow about it. You can screen grab it and tell Cold Takes Exposed to get out of here because you nailed it. But in any event, that's going to do it for us here today. Want to thank you for joining us. Want to thank Nick Moreno one more time. And of course, make sure you like and subscribe to this podcast. And we will see you Tuesday night for Take It to the Rank. Until then, bear down.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.